If you want a drink, well, you come right on in. Just watch your step, cause we're all wanted men.
Where do you get the blue milk?
Okay, now that we want to move on to other news, so the TV shows, upcoming TV shows. We know that there will be a Cassian Andor television show that will star Diego Luna playing Cassian from Rogue One, and I guess it'll be set before his death in Rogue One. So I
Well,
guess
obviously, yeah.
the spy time, the period is the spy for the rebellion, and Alan Tudyk is supposed to play K2SO, right?
Right. Yeah, he's reprising the voice of
Yeah,
K2SO.
that would be cool. But I don't think we have any other details about that yet, even a
Very
release
little's come out
date or
that one.
yeah.
It doesn't really say. I mean, obviously, considering the actors involved, it'll have to be close to Rogue One. It's not going to be like, well, this is a prequel from 20 years ago or something.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
the
right.
age of the character wouldn't justify that, nor the age of the actor. So
Yeah. Then we've got a new season of Clone Wars coming up.
yes,
12 episodes long.
Yep.
I didn't see anything about a release date for that. Have either of you guys heard?
No, I haven't seen anything confirmed on that. From what I understand, it's obviously it won't be until Disney Plus goes live, which is in November.
Yeah.
And that's which is getting to the Mandalorian. Of course, November 12th is the day that will be premiered.
Yep. And then Mandalorian is the big news. November 12th. They showed not only a trailer but an entire scene from it, about 5 to 7 minutes long, at Star Wars Celebration a month and a half ago, I guess.
Yep.
Do you want me to give a rundown of like where it's set and who's in it, and then we could talk about it?
Sure.
From what I understand, it's set exactly 5 years after Return of the Jedi. And it's supposed to be, and this is why I thought maybe it's connected to the theme park, since the theme park is set in the Outer Rim territories and a planet on the Outer Rim territories. The series is set in the Outer Rim territories, and I think maybe even, I read somewhere that the Black Spire village that's in the theme park might appear at some point in the series. So I wonder if the release of the series and the theme park at the same time kind of coincide.
I wonder if that'll appear in episode 9 as well.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
I mean, why wouldn't you cross promote like that? You know?
Yeah. But the show is supposed to follow the adventures of a lone Mandalorian bounty hunter. The storyline, from what it sounds like, I'm wondering if it might actually be drawn from that Star Wars Underworld television series that they were planning around 2009. Mm-hmm. They actually wrote several scripts for, but then they decided not to do it because it was too expensive. Mm-hmm. So and then Disney bought Lucasfilm, and so I'm wondering if some of the stuff from that originally planned series might work its way into this, because that series was supposed to be set in the criminal underworld.
Was Favreau involved in the original, or
I don't know.
Or what's the guy's name from Clone Wars?
Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
If Filoni was involved with it, then maybe but if not, Favreau evidently wrote the scripts, like at least the first 3 scripts for this himself, based off of his own ideas. So I wouldn't really expect there to be any bleed over necessarily.
Yeah, there were supposed to be like 50 scripts already written for that other series, but then they never.
Yeah, there was a bunch written for that.
But as you said, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are the showrunners, and Jon Favreau directed, I think, several episodes. I'll run through who's in it, and then we can talk about what they showed in that scene that they showed at Star Wars Celebration that kind of gives us an idea of what the main plot is. Let me see, I got a list here, people. You got, of course, the Mandalorian title character played by Pedro Pascal, who's most famous for Oberyn Martell in Game of Thrones. Wonderful actor. You've got a character named Cara Dune, played by Gina Carano, and she is an ex-rebel shock trooper, because this takes place 5 years after the end of the Galactic Civil War. So she had been a trooper working for the rebellion, and she said in her interview at Star Wars Celebration that her character is having trouble integrating back into civilian society. So I guess She ends up as a bounty hunter or part of the criminal underworld or something like
Yeah.
that. You've got a character named Grief Karga, played by Carl Weathers, who's the head of a guild of bounty hunters looking to hire someone. He ends up hiring the Mandalorian to locate this valuable asset for a client of his. And that client is played by Werner Herzog, which I was amazed that he was going to be in this.
Yeah.
And they don't give a name for his character or any background information, but he's featured in the scene that we can talk about in a minute that they showed it at Star Wars Celebration. So he's looking to hire someone to pay a bounty to find this asset for him. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. And then you've got...
Who wants to bet that the asset's a little girl?
I'm wondering if it isn't. It's a person. It's a person, definitely, from the scene they showed.
It's the first I've heard of it.
They told, because he tells the Mandalorian that he wants this asset brought back alive, but he'll pay a lower bounty if the asset is brought back dead. You know, it's either dead or alive, but it'd be paid more if alive.
I hope it's not a snarky, quippy little girl or teenager.
Yeah, it's going to be a person. We also have Giancarlo Esposito, who played Chicken Man, Gus Fring in Breaking Bad, another wonderful actor. And
he's fantastic. I love that guy.
Oh, he's awesome.
What a great choice.
They don't there's no name for his character and no indication of what he's playing in terms of the publicity stuff released. But in the scenes from the trailer that they showed at Star Wars Celebration, it looks like he's playing a former Imperial, because it shows a scene in which he walks into a village backed by a whole group of stormtroopers and he says, "Burn it all down," or something like that. And they set fire to this village. And then I think he's shown flying a TIE fighter. It looked like he's in the cockpit of a TIE fighter.
So he's an Imperial or still has access to Imperial technology and Imperial troops and stuff.
Yeah. And then let's see, you got
bad guy.
Taika Waititi, who was the director of Thor Ragnarok, not only directs at least one episode of this series, but he also voices a character, IG-11, which in the trailer looked like IG-88. I think when
that's the same theories as IG-88.
Yeah, everybody thought it was IG-88 when they showed the trailer at Celebration, but it's actually a different character, bounty hunter droid. And then finally, you got Nick Nolte playing mystery character. Nick Nolte. Okay. Like what?
I'm sure that character will be perfectly sane.
Oh, yes, of course.
So I don't know. Maybe he'll just voice a character, like a CGI character or something like that. But there is no information, sounds like deliberately given about him because they wanted it to be a surprise, I guess. Let's talk about the scene that they showed, because it seems to give an overall plot of what will be happening.
Nick Nolte is Ezra Bridger. Older Ezra Bridger. Comes back from the unknown regions completely insane and old.
Disillusioned. No.
That would destroy the fanboys everywhere.
But the scene they show about 5 minutes long. You can they did not release it to the public, but you can see it. You can find it on YouTube of people that did recordings of it. Yeah. And it shows the Mandalorian entering a cantina at the beginning, and he meets with the Carl Weathers character, Grief Karga, who is going to hire him to locate this asset for a client of his. And when he's going to hire him, he tells them that he gives him the possibility of getting all these other bounties. This is very low pay. And the Mandalorian isn't interested. And he says, "You got anything higher?" And he says, "Okay, we got this really difficult one. It's the hardest one. And you have to meet this person face to face to be set up for it." So he heads out of the cantina to go to the location where he's going to meet the client. And he's going through the streets, and we see different Star Wars creatures and characters and stuff like that we recognize from the movies in the streets. I love the scene where it shows a Salacious Crumb. I don't know what species. I can't remember what species Salacious Crumb is. Yeah. But one of those little creatures is on a spit roasting, and they got
they got another one like watching from his cage, like freaking out, like I'm next.
Yeah, and he goes to the building where he's supposed to meet the client. And the eyeball from Jabba's palace is evidently like Siri or Alexa or whatever, like the home security network that people have today. The eyeball comes out of the door and looks at his ID card to make sure it's okay for him to come in. And the gonk droid.
Yeah, the gonk
Yep,
droid escorts
yeah,
him.
yeah,
There's a
escorts
gonk
him to
droid.
meet the client. And of course, the client is Werner Herzog, and they sit down at a table together, and there's stormtroopers in the room with him. So I think what's interesting is that it seems to imply from what the Herzog character says later is that Herzog is maybe backing a group that wants to return to imperial order. You know, his part of this asset is going to try to support the overthrow of the New Republic and the restoration of the Empire is what it sounds like. And what's most interesting to me is the way he offers the bounty is he shows the Mandalorian a piece of Beskar. Do you guys know what I'm talking about, Beskar?
No.
It's evidently mentioned in some of maybe Clone Wars and in Rebels. It's the ancient Mandalorian alloy that Mandalorian armor is made of.
Oh, okay.
Kind of Mandalorian iron, and it's supposed to be able to deflect laser blasts and slashes from lightsabers. And according to, I think it's Rebels, Mandalorians no longer have access to this alloy, and their armor is no longer made of it. When we get to the original trilogy, only Boba Fett has armor that's made of this alloy. And so the client, Herzog, tells the Mandalorian, I'll give you this piece of Beskar, and I've got a whole trove of it that I'll give to you if you bring this asset.
So this implies that he's working towards a different suit by the end.
Yes.
A bigger
Kind of
goal.
like
Yeah.
Daredevil season 1, where he started off with a blindfold over his head and some workout clothes as his super suit, and by the end he had an actual super suit.
And just if I can interject here, they have talked about that, and they've said on the behind the scenes footage with this that as the series progresses, you will see the suit become more and more progressively built.
Oh wow!
Because that's literally either I think
So
it was
he gets
Jon
a
Favreau
piece of
was
this
talking
every
about
time he completes a mission, probably.
that. Right, he probably gets more and more pieces together for
Interesting.
For suit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as it goes,
I wonder if he'll end up looking like Phasma a little bit.
That is interesting. And at the end of this scene, when the Mandalorian accepts the bounty, this is interesting. Herzog says to him, the Beskar belongs back into the hands of a Mandalorian. It's good to restore the natural order of things after a period of such disarray. Don't you agree? And then they go to the trailer where you have a voiceover from him saying, the Empire improves every system it touches. And he says it brings safety, prosperity, peace. And then he complains about the revolution bringing, I guess the rebellion, he calls it revolution, bringing death and chaos. And throughout all of that trailer, you're seeing Giancarlo Esposito burning down a village with stormtroopers, and flying a TIE fighter. And so that's why I think that this is going to be about an attempt to resurrect the Empire somehow.
And obviously they're going to be in a contest of some kind for the same objective, the Mandalorian and what's left of these Imperials.
Yeah.
Maybe they want that alloy to create super trooper armor or something, or maybe just the point of his objectives is counter to their objectives, and they're both going for the same. That's more than likely what it is. They're both going for the same prize, and then kind of like typical villains, once a group interferes with you enough times, you say, okay, it's time to crush this group. So I think once the Carl Weathers group gets on the radar for these Imperials, by interfering enough times to the Mandalorian and other characters, then they'll say, okay, we've had enough of these bounty hunters. Time to get rid of them. And that's when you'll have kind of open conflict between those two groups, I think.
And I think maybe the asset they're competing for is a person, because the Herzog character tells the Mandalorian that they want the asset brought back alive if possible, but they'll pay a lower bounty if dead.
It makes me think there's an old Empire contingent, which is Herzog. There's a new contingent that's based on Imperial ideals, but is something new, which is Esposito, right? And then there's the ones caught in between, which is going to be the bounty hunters and the regular folks and stuff.
Yeah, who could end up going either way. That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to think about the moral ambiguity of the characters. But let me end by pointing out one thing that was just that I think came out on the internet like 2 days ago that I had no idea. If you watch that scene that they showed at Star Wars Celebration, Herzog tells the Mandalorian that he will pay him in Beskar. He gives him a piece of Beskar, and he says, "I've got a whole Camtano of Beskar that you will receive if you bring back that will be your bounty if you bring back the asset." And so they're like, okay, what the hell is a Camtano? Just a couple of days ago, I saw these articles on the internet that said this is actually a reference to Ice Cream Maker Man from Empire Strikes Back.
Oh,
Remember Ice Cream
a
Maker
Bespin?
Man?
Oh,
Yeah.
the guy in the jumpsuit running with the
Yes.
ice
Yeah,
cream
running
maker?
with an ice cream maker.
Yeah. In Empire
Yeah,
Strikes Back.
did they have his name there? Okay.
Yeah. Wilro Hood.
Yeah, Wilro Hood, yeah.
Bill Rowe.
The running of the hoods is what they call it at the
Or
conventions
how
when all the
could I-
people show up, like 100 people
Yeah.
show up with the same jumpsuit and ice cream maker.
Yeah. When Bespin Cloud City was taken over by the Empire, and Lando Calrissian warns everyone to get out now, the one guy, Wilro Hood, is seen running for like 1 second through the hallway carrying his most prized possession, an ice cream maker. It's like, well, that's not actually an ice cream maker. According to this, it's a Camtono. So the Camtono is evidently, at least this is what it was in Star Wars Legends in the expanded
It's a
universe. Yeah, it's basically a bucket for storing things.
Right.
It's a safe, basically. It's a safe.
BS. I call BS on that. It's an ice cream maker or some other kind of appliance. We all know it is. I thought it was a Cuisinart. I thought the guy like is addicted to his shakes or whatever. Like he has to have a Cuisinart.
But according to Star Wars Legends, this guy, I have to look at his name again, Wilro Hood, had a whole backstory where he was using this Camtono to store a secret list of rebels to whom he was selling gas that was mined from the gas planet there on at Cloud City to use for their weapons against the Empire. So he was in cahoots with the rebellion. So whenever Cloud City was taken over by the Empire, he shoves the computer hard drive that has this list of rebel contacts into his ice cream maker. And that's why the ice cream maker is so important to him. So the Camtano is some kind of safe for storing valuable things, evidently, like your ice cream. And Jon Favreau actually tweeted while they were shooting The Mandalorian a photograph of the Camtano from the set of The Mandalorian. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's the ice cream maker."
Yeah. Okay, this is one thing that worries me about Favreau, as I'm very glad he's got this project. Don't get me wrong. But Solo kind of left a bad taste with me if his character of Rio Durant just constantly dropping the Easter eggs and the references. And then the first scene we get, I understand it's the first scene they wanted to show, so they loaded it with stuff. But to have a Gonk droid, a Salacious Crumb, the spiraling door, which was really cool, by the way. But all these references just, it's just, is it overkill? And I'm wondering if they're going to go too far with all the little details instead of letting them occur, letting the world breathe and letting it occur naturally, because it begins to feel forced. And like nudge, nudge, wink, wink, you are in a Star Wars thing.
I agree.
Star Wars needs to draw you in, and slowly these pieces are there in the background or they're revealed.
Exactly.
Or you finally find out what something is useful for, or we see the ship that Luke was playing with the model, in The New Hope or something. Stuff like that, rather than, that worries me a little, I gotta admit.
Yeah, it may be rushed and outset, but how long could they continue that? Yeah, at some point it'll die down, and that story will have to continue on its own merits. Yeah. So I hope that the story will be good. And I did like what I saw in that scene. I was real impressed by it.
Yeah.
I really liked having Werner Herzog in it. So that was really cool. And Pedro Pascal's so wonderful. Although in the scene they showed, you never see him out of the mask. I thought it was interesting.
No, that's what I think is so ironic about the casting is, we spent so much of our time when we think about Boba Fett, like who's under there,
Yeah.
and kind of like Vader, we expected him to have something wrong with him, like why he's in a mask all the time is he's been had his face half blasted off during battle, or I don't know. We had all kinds of theories. He's an old man. Is he a young man? Is he a woman? Is he, it could have been anything. So you have a main protagonist in a mask most of the time, and he's Pedro Pascal,
Yeah.
who's incredibly striking. I don't care
Yeah.
what persuasion you are. He's a very charismatic and
Yeah.
striking individual, and can act with his eyes, with his stance, with every part of his body really, and when you put him in a costume like that. It's going to be interesting to see him project that physicality and that charisma through a costume, and how long they're going to stick to that, and what the reveal is going to be like. Because we're assuming he's going to look like Pedro Pascal when you take that mask off. He may not.
Yeah,
may
that's a
not.
good point.
There may be makeup involved where they, we don't know. So, anyway,
Yeah,
I think
I'm very
that's one of the
interested to see
most
where that
intriguing
goes.
things to me is why they cast him, because I think he's a perfect choice. Don't get me wrong. Just like I think Favreau's and Filoni are perfect choices, but it's kind of a wait and see thing. But I don't. It's almost like having an embarrassment of riches. Like you really can't go wrong with any direction you choose to go. If you keep him in the mask the whole show, it's kind of a waste of that. But then it makes the moment when he finally comes out of the mask that much more powerful.
Yeah.
Less is more, and you could tell a whole different story. He could be a completely different person when he's wearing the mask and when he's not wearing the mask. So the possibilities are kind of endless. And also, I think the woman who's playing the kind of second part, wasn't she like a MMA or something?
Yeah, she's a
Oh,
full-time
yeah,
MMA fighter.
yeah.
So
And-
obviously they brought her in for a lot of physical stuff.
Physicality and fighting scenes. Yeah.
And to make it believable that we're gonna have a really
You don't have to
badass,
bring in a stunt double or anything.
which is awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Very,
trust
very
and I
cool.
trust the people involved to to get a good performance there, and it not just to be necessarily. I mean, we've had some great. This is genre. We have Arnold Schwarzenegger as Conan. This has a long history of working out because of the genre. It doesn't have to be perfect. Its imperfections make it even better. So. So anyway, I'm not worried about that. I think that's going to be really cool. And I want to say my two favorite parts of that, the scene that they showed was Herzog's overdub at the end when the action gets frenetic and you get a feeling of Rogue One in there where he says, "Are things any better? Have you seen the desperate violence right outside the door?" or whatever he's talking about. I mean, is it actually, is there peace, or do you see violence? And they're showing violence, so we know what
We know what the answer is. Yeah.
we know what the answer. He's got a point. He's got a point.
Yeah.
So I like that dark edge that reminds me of Rogue One, and that maybe we're gonna see some all bets are off type stuff. And then I also loved the moment where the stormtroopers tried to ambush the Mandalorian guy, and he pulled multiple weapons on them, and they said, "We've got you 4-1," and he said, "I like those odds."
I like those odds. That's a great line.
and the guy was like, "Everybody calm down. We're all gonna get killed here."
Yeah, exactly.
But I thought that was a good use of a line that could have clanked, as a Star Wars reference. But it actually worked, and the delivery was deadpan enough to where. Anyway, if they manage to tightrope and catch those tones perfectly, where you're not just going, wow, that's a bad Star Wars reference, and they manage to make it new and interesting, and you believe in this character, then sky's the limit,
Yeah, I'm really excited about this series, especially after seeing. I was excited from the beginning, but especially after seeing that scene from Celebration. So I'm looking forward to it, and I can't believe it's just November. It's just around the corner.
Yeah.
For it to come. So
it's about 5 months. Yep.
Yeah, it sounds like they're really turning their attention to the television, to streaming media. To try to beef up streaming media.
Yeah, I
Star
think
Wars
Kathleen
content.
Kennedy has recognized almost officially that that's the future of the Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, it's the future
at least
of
for
a
the
lot
time
of,
being. That's what they're going to do. That's why I think the cancellation of the side films, like the solo type movie Rogue One, they're not doing any more of those because I think they just want to channel the money and the resources into the streaming service.
Conquer the world that way. The lines have all been blurred now because
absolutely.
You can't even keep your movie from being pirated anyway and being put on the internet. But so you lose a certain amount of money, and I think what Marvel has done is they've done every single movie in the movie theater, but they're going forward. They're going to try to do the same thing: tentpole movies in the movie theater, and then use all those materials and stories and props and costumes that you have from the movies and make spin-off TV shows that people will watch. Also, if anybody with any sense involved in this Star Wars thing has figured out, they have to have, that expectations are just killing the franchise. You know, that expectations is what brings people to Celebration, brings people to theater, but it's also what causes backlash, you know, and it's impossible to please everyone. Television, even though it has become a spectacle and the budgets are through the roof, the actors are actors that are movie quality actors, directors, writers, everything are movie quality, but still I think the general public has a lowered expectation
Yeah.
when they stream it, and then they can just stream it and watch it on Netflix. If it's really good, you're so pleasantly surprised because it gets all these points for being a streamed product.
Yeah.
So you go to a movie theater, your expectations are way, way up here. You stream, they're somewhere more in the middle or lower. So I think it's a winning formula to put some new stuff on this format where people will just be pleasantly surprised. They won't feel the pressure to analyze every aspect of it, whether it's a success or failure. And people will still, there's still going to be a contingent out there that's going to judge everything extremely harshly because frankly, they make money on it is number one. And things should be, we should have standards. I always say, just because you're a fan doesn't mean you accept everything that's spoon fed to you. But I think it's smart to go this direction. They know what they're doing. You know, they aren't the biggest corporation in the world for no reason.
Yeah.
So so I think it's smart what they're doing, and like I said, it will open new audiences, and it will also, this expectation thing has gotten out of control, and maybe they can slide some things in kind of under the radar and build them up on their own without people trying to tear them down with expectations right out of the gate. So I thought Celebration, they almost underplayed the Mandalorian, trying to keep it a more low key, I think they're trying to keep people from getting too
so built
falsely
up
hyped about it.
Yeah.
And keep it a little bit of mystery so you don't go in expecting, you know, your story in your head to play out. Maybe. And it could also be because episode 9's in December and they don't want this product
Don't want to be
that
overshadowed.
a lot of people are really interested in to overshadow. Yeah.
Okay, so as far as Mandalorian, I am trying to temper my excitement. But it is very difficult. I am so excited about this show. I was already excited at the premise, and then once we got what we got at Celebration, it's really hard to contain. Because I am so stoked for this show.
I do want to interject one thing. If you do have an erection lasting more than 4 hours, you do need to consult a physician.
I need to start consulting. So
okay.
It's the hospital.
Because I can't even begin to tell you. This kind of goes without saying, I'm sure, with all of us. But well, maybe not all of us. But I am exponentially more excited about this than anything called The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
And I can tell even when I watch the trailers. Like I'll watch, you know, like for instance, yesterday, you know, saw Toy Story, and they showed, of course, Rise of Skywalker, and I was like, you know, I barely got out of me. But yet, when I rewatched the Mandalorian thing for the 15th time yesterday, I'm like, oh my God, this looks amazing! I cannot wait for this. So honestly, I would put. I know this isn't really a topic right now, but as far as expectations and what I'm looking forward to coming up in the Star Wars universe, I would say Mandalorian number 1, Clone Wars new season number 2, then Rise of Skywalker. Actually, that was Rise of Skywalker probably be under Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
So it's probably 5th down the list. But I am so excited about the possibilities of this show. Just in what they've already shown us, just the little taste they've given us, I think looks amazing. The cast is fantastic. One guy actually that you didn't mention is actually a character from Sons of Anarchy, which is a show I really love. And that's Mark Boone Jr. is the actor's name.
Oh, yeah.
He's in this show as well. He played Bobby in Sons of Anarchy, and one of my favorite characters. But so I'm looking forward to it.
I haven't watched that show, so.
It's really good. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I could just go on and on, but I love it. The fact that Dave Filoni is there doing his directorial debut on live action, I think is going to be really something to see. I know a lot of people are talking about, you know, Dave Filoni as being the heir apparent to, you know, Kathleen Kennedy as president of Lucasfilm, and I could absolutely see that. He's one of the one of the guys who, at least in the business, is so steeped in the lore. I mean, he gets Star Wars more so than so many others do.
And he seems to be liked by the fans. Like he can
pretty
dodge. He's like the Matrix. He can dodge every bullet, while it hit other people. It seemed to bypass him. So
yeah, he's very popular with the fan base, and that's something that the fandom needs as well. So anyway, those are basically my thoughts. I'm really looking forward to this. I think the time frame, the setting, the look, the feel of the show. This is absolutely, like they've always said, Star Wars is a Western in space. This really looks like a Western in space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just going to be incredible. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think I feel the same. I'm more excited for it than for the movies. So yeah, any of the movies.
okay, but Gundark, before you say any more, I just wanted to respond to Corellian specifically with his whole statement and say that you are clearly sexist. Clearly, you just hate women. Absolutely hate women. I mean, the name of the show. Look at the name of the. Why don't you look at the name of the show and examine your privilege for a minute? Mandalorian, man. It's not woman DeLorean. It's not people DeLorean. It's not, enlightened DeLorean moving forward. People enjoy. It is Mandalorian. That's why, obviously, why you like it better than episode 9. There's something wrong with you. It's called sexism.
No, here I am a woman, and I like Mandalorian.
Hush while I'm empowering you. I'm empowering you. Stop. Be quiet and listen to me empowering you. And just embrace the power I give you. Let me explain how you're marginalized.
You're explaining to me why Mandalorian is better. I already decided on my own. Mandalorian is superior to anything else.
I am Mandalorian explaining.
Yeah, Mandalorian. Yeah, I'm much more excited for Mandalorian than I think for the film. And even we didn't mention that upcoming is the trilogy by the showrunners for Game of Thrones. Which I was originally excited about until the last season of Game of Thrones tanked, So I'm like, okay, Mandalorian, all my hopes are on you.
Yes.
Come on, you gotta come through for me. But I was excited for it from the beginning when I heard who was cast. And then seeing the stuff from Celebration was just so fantastic. So I think it will be very enjoyable. I think it will be a good, hopefully a good starting point for the live action series, since we've never had a live action television series for Star Wars before.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Do we want to move on to end with some movie reviews of current movies?
All right. Greedo, do you have anything?
I don't. Not off the top of my head. The last movie I saw in the theater was Avengers End Game, and I did a little episode about that with a couple other fellows about the MCU. Right. I will say, as everybody knows, it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Agreed. Fantastic movie.
For movies that are at least half cartoon and half real, it was really good, and a great ending. Had little issues and stuff, but it just gives you hope that they can still pull off these undertakings, these massive undertakings, and do them in a halfway satisfying and correct way.
Absolutely, I agree.
Because even just these last two movies, Infinity War and Endgame, just the task of doing that must have been so much to juggle. Literally like 100 characters and all these storylines and making people happy, but also challenging the audience a little bit. And they really pulled that off. I just wish that Hollywood in general with these blockbuster films would give us a little more than a Transformers movie. That's kind of the difference to me, is like Sound and Fury is Transformers. Sound and Fury with some good melodrama and memorable characters and lines and stuff is more like MCU. And I hope Star Wars finds a way back to that, to giving us what we want without pandering to us, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, everybody knows, but yeah, go see that if you haven't. It's going to be re-released this coming weekend, I believe, with the new footage after the credits. They're trying to dethrone Avatar, the almost $2 billion mark or whatever it was. Right? So they're re-releasing it, and I was thinking maybe we're going to go to Mississippi Comic-Con this weekend, but maybe we can find some time to go see it or something, since you saw Infinity War recently.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to see it yet. So,
It's
Oh, you
definitely
haven't
worth
seen?
seeing
Oh,
in
I
the
didn't realize you
mm-mm,
hadn't seen Endgame.
yeah, it's
Okay.
worth seeing in
mm-mm.
the theater for sure. So.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, Gundark, what would you like to review?
Godzilla, King of Monsters.
Ooh, I haven't
Godzilla.
seen that yet. I'm definitely
Uh,
looking forward to that.
okay, I won't give spoilers. Although, damn, it's Godzilla. I mean,
I know. What do you
you
expect?
know
Right?
what it's gonna
Let
be.
them fight.
It's going, yes, it's gonna be a smackdown. I really enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed it just about as much as the previous Godzilla movie,
Mm.
which I also saw in the theater twice. And I'm not a big Godzilla fan, although I watch the old movies occasionally when they come on television just for a hoot. But I saw this movie with a friend of mine who is a big Godzilla fan, and has been since she was a kid, and she knows all the old movies and all the monsters and everything,
That's
back to
great.
the original Godzilla. And so she was able to give me all the Easter eggs and stuff that's in the movie, which was really cool. And I thought the movie's been getting mixed reviews from critics, but I think that again the expectations idea that they had expectations of like a science fiction blockbuster for this rather than a Godzilla movie, and they were reviewing it from the perspective of other sci-fi franchise blockbusters. And they were disappointed in it. Most of the reviews mentioned that while the monster fights were cool, the humans were stupid, and the human storyline was boring. And I'm like, it's a Godzilla movie, for God's sake. It's not about the humans. And what I found fun about it was that the humans were stupid. Of the stuff with the humans was ridiculous. Oops, we need to.
It's like your point became so important that you took up the whole screen. The humans are stupid.
Let's see if Alan can.
Corellian must have dropped.
Yeah,
You think?
see if he can rejoin.
Don't you think though there's something to be said for why not write a good plot for the
Well,
humans or
yeah,
good
yeah.
stuff that isn't stupid where
But
they aren't
I
dumb?
don't think when it's not there, since it's a Godzilla movie, I don't think that's a reason to say don't go see it.
Yeah. If the
Because
rest of it's strong enough, it makes up
and
for
not
that.
even that, I didn't find the human plot boring. It was so silly that it was very entertaining.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
never know what foolish thing the humans would do next. And then they would do something, and I'd be like, "Wah ha ha!" I couldn't contain it.
Right.
So they were like the comedy relief of the film.
Yeah.
And then you
So
got,
bad that it's good kind of thing.
yeah, and then you got the incredible monster smackdowns, that were awesome. And I know some people were complaining about the too dark cinematography of some of the monster smackdowns.
Uh-oh.
I did not see that. I did not see that. They fought in some rainstorms and stuff like that, but it didn't. To me, it still looked spectacular. And you had just about every monster from the Godzilla franchise show up. Each of them did their own thing, in spectacular ways. And he's like, Rodan did. Oh my God, that kind of thing. One of us showed. Oh, that is Rodan. Or Mothra would do
Rodan.
something. So it was very entertaining, a lot of fun. But don't go in expecting something that will be like super good, because I mean, what Godzilla movie was ever super good? Okay,
Yeah.
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 Go in to have fun and silliness.
That kind of reminds me of the what was the King Kong
Yeah, Skull.
Island of Kong, Skull Island. Yeah, that was sort of the same thing. Really forgettable, but the effects were good, and the monster, violence was good and stuff. But yeah, kind of throwaway characters, kind of throwaway plot.
Yeah.
Uh,
The previous Godzilla, the humans in it were non-entities too, but they weren't ridiculous. You didn't have the laugh factor with them like you do in this Godzilla.
mhm.
So to some degree, I almost like the human storyline in this Godzilla better, because at least it kept me
Right.
laughing throughout. You know, they
And
were,
that's a staple of Godzilla movies is they cut to the meanwhile in the chamber of experts, and there's always
yeah,
these experts that are usually all Japanese, and they're trying to figure out what to do next.
and they got
And
some
they
radar technology and
yeah,
located
that's
Godzilla,
yeah,
or something.
terrible. And while they're discussing what to do next, the military's trying some futile
Yeah.
gesture with the missile firing trucks and all that stuff.
Yeah, so it was really like, oh, the Godzilla. The previous Godzilla was kind of resurrecting the monster and making him badass, where he really had majesty to him, and you felt like, oh my God, what would it be a human? What would it be like to be a human if these monsters really walk the earth and you just can't do anything about it? But this movie was more just like the old fun Godzilla. So if you enjoy those old movies, you'd probably like this movie. I give it a thumbs up.
Cool. I don't know what happened to Corellian.
Corellian, no signs or blessings.
That's what I'm trying to tell you, kid. He's no longer there. He's been totally blown away.
He had vanished.
Okay, so we got a thumbs up on Godzilla, King of Monsters from Gundark, and Corellian as buggered off.
With no signs of blessings.
No signs or blessings.
Maybe in our next issue of the Tatooine Times, he can do the movie review. So.
Yeah, he decided to save his movie review for Tatooine Times, the competing publication.
Competing rival publication.
No one has really yet to tell him that it is too remote for an effective demonstration. But he'll just have to learn. So anyway, this is our first episode of the Tatooine Times for our podcast here. And there will be more because we had a lot more to talk about than we thought we did. So I'm sure as more news emerges, we will have more to talk about. So on behalf of Corellian Trader, everyone gets boarded sometimes. Maybe he's getting boarded right now by the Empire. Gundark, anything else to say?
Just say check us out on Twitter, Facebook. Please subscribe for more content. Take care. We'll have another issue out soon. Bye.
We all know around here, Solo always does shots first, singing your no.
Good day. Whatever they say in Galaxy's Edge.
Your no. At the Cantina Club.